Hi everyone and welcome to Just Love. My name's Paula and I'm here with Judy. Hi Judy.
Hi Paula, hi everyone.
In our last episode 160, we presented an article by Zachary Fisher entitled The Hopi Prophecy, the Blue Kachina and the Return of the Ant People. As we said, this article addresses many things and current happenings. So in our next couple of episodes, we'll break it down and discuss it in detail. Judy, you've spoken many times about the Hopi Prophecy and how we're shifting into a new cycle. As author Gregg Braden says in his book Fractal Time, the end of a 5,125-year cycle and the end of a 25,625-year cycle provide humanity with the opportunity to choose the next stage of our evolutionary journey. You've also confirmed that we are at such a time right now. The time has come to choose which version of reality we want to tune into, 3D fear or 5D love.
Yes, Paula, the cycles that Gregg Braden talks about link in so closely to this prophecy. As we've spoken about before, my feeling is that both these cycles are in the process of ending. Note that the longer 25,625-year cycle is made up of 5 of the 5,125-year cycles. So such a massive ending hasn't happened in 25,625 years. This being the case, we're going through a major point of change. And yes, as we've also said again and again, the time has come to choose between 3D and 5D. Love or fear.
Yeah, just as we've been saying right from the beginning of our Just Love podcasts. So to continue with the prophecy, the next section goes on with, somehow, without trying, without forcing it, all of us with eyes to see can feel the truth rising through the cracks. Something older than religion, faith or belief, and in fact older than any civilization we have known, is waking up again. Judy, you've always known this as memory and not just a story.
Yes, Paula, I sure have. Ever since childhood, I've felt something more was going on beyond 3D, beyond faith and belief, rather an inner knowing, but I couldn't put it into words or put a label on it until the ET half of my consciousness began awakening more fully. What is arising through the cracks is a deeper perception beyond 3D. As is illustrated so cleverly on the human ladder, more of our conscious awareness is now being awakened as we evolve to the second level of the ladder, which will enable us to access 20% of our potential conscious awareness and DNA.
So in other words, our ascension process involves deeper and deeper levels of awakening to self-realization. And the contact so many of us are having with the greys and other higher dimensional beings is all part of this. As the greys so often say when they first contact people, it's time for you to wake up. And as the prophecy says, the Hopi speak about beings they call the ant people, guardians of our inner world who sheltered humanity during the last 2 destructions. These were not insects. They were humanoid protectors with large oval eyes, elongated limbs, and a telepathic communal consciousness. They lived beneath the earth and emerged only when the surface was burning or freezing. They taught early humans how to survive without sunlight, how to grow food underground, how to live in unity, truth, and rhythm with the Creator. Judy, you've always associated the ant people with the greys, haven't you?
Yes, I have. As I talk about in my ET Presence on Earth book, they were a much earlier insectoid-type Earth-human culture created here by the mantids specifically to work closely with the nature spirits to prepare Earth for a diversity of species, which they helped to introduce through their genetic and ecological work. They ended up having to hide underground as their culture was almost destroyed by the later reptoid Earth humans that I call repterans. My understanding is that it's the ant people who are the past Earth-human culture that Bashar, the Essassani Zeta, refers to as needing help through the hybrid program. Author and remote viewer Courtney Brown discusses this in his books entitled Cosmic Voyage and Cosmic Explorers. He and his team did a number of remote viewing sessions on the Greys and were able to link into an incredible depth of pain, guilt and sadness that they've carried in their collective psyche over millennia, connected with what they did to their home planet through behaviour very similar to that of present-day humanity. They were here as caretakers of the planet, working hand in hand with the nature spirits, but ended up destroying it. In an excess of guilt, they decided to completely remove emotion from their psyche. But no human culture can operate that way. This is why the two cultures, these ancient grey ant people and modern-day mammalian humans, have needed the hybrid program being overseen by the mantids to balance themselves out. Like the early ant people, present-day humans have too much in the way of emotion, particularly of the negative sort, so they also need to be balanced. Because of the ant people's guilt at what they'd done to Earth, they went too far by removing emotion completely from their psyches, hence the need to balance both groups out. It worries them deeply to see Earth humans going this way again, with their racism and wars and degradation of the environment of the planet. Again, our beautiful Mother Earth is being destroyed through human greed and emotion.
Wow, there's a lot to unpack there. So let's start with how the Hopis speak about the ant people, guardians of the inner world who sheltered humanity during the last two destructions. Then you can share some of your own experiences as an ant person that you can recall. So of the last two destructions, most people know about Noah's Ark, but that was the fifth destruction. We have spoken about this previously and it's very interesting. Can you remind us about the previous destructions, what happened and their approximate timelines, and how the ant people sheltered humanity during the last two?
Yes, Paula, the so-called Noah's flood was the last one, and the one before that was when a nuclear-type war took place to drive the ETs away from Earth, who were trying to free the half-primate, half-human mixtures from the slavery imposed upon them by the Repterans. As for the timeline, I don't know. Evidence of this war can be found in the Middle East, and I think in the Gobi Desert, where areas of vitrified sand have been found.
So here you're talking about the second last destruction that occurred on Earth, the one before Noah's flood.
Yes, this was when the ETs were driven away from Earth. Up until then, they'd been openly present here. This is why the so-called God of the Old Testament is so polarised. On one hand, he gives a positive commandment of thou shalt not kill, and in the next breath is sending tribes of Israel off to kill other tribes, including their women, children and animals. The Repterans were posing as a god figure, and the ETs came here, trying to balance things out. Of course, the very young mammalian Earth humans believed that they were a god or gods with their amazing technology of chariots of fire, burning bushes and the parting of the Red Sea. This is why there's no mention of ETs in the Old Testament of the Bible. The Repterans took all the credit as the God of the Bible, who created Earth humans as described in the Genesis story. They've kept us under control and enslaved ever since.
Very interesting. So going back to the second last destruction, you have an experience that you can share.
Yes, when I visited the Gosford Glyphs of Carroll in New South Wales back in 2016 with my friend and co-author Helene, as we climbed the quite difficult path up to the glyphs, a very strong memory came through of a life lived back then here in Australia as one of the ant people. Helene and the guide who was with us that day had been part of a Pleiadian and Lyran crew who had been sent here to Earth to try to intervene in the way the Repterans were treating the newly created primate Earth species, human species. The Pleiadian ship was fired on and crashed over what is now Europe, but a small group managed to escape in a rescue pod that ended up crashing into the ocean just off the east coast of Australia. My folks, the ant people, had been living underground trying to keep ourselves safe from the Repterans, who had been attacking us for a long time. So the arrival of the Pleiadians was very welcome, but they themselves needed help after the crash. We took the survivors underground to protect them against the harsh climate and cared for them. The Gosford Glyphs are a hieroglyphic record of their time here. Their reason for coming involved carrying out genetic work on the mixtures to bring them more into the human kingdom. Most of the medical equipment they brought with them had been destroyed in the crash, but our folks were very knowledgeable with genetics, so we lent them our equipment and knowledge. This memory has been carried down through millennia by the Aboriginal people who portray the Wanjinas in their art, which are obviously greys. They also feel a strong connection with the Pleiadians as we work closely together. The ETs were eventually forced to leave Earth after a major war with the Reptarians, who considered themselves to be the owners of the planet. They've kept mammalian Earth plane humanity in a continual state of enslavement ever since. Now the ETs are again trying to intervene. The Greys in particular understand the difficulties involved, as their own culture, the ant people, have been there, done that with the aggressive Reptarians.
Yeah. So you talk about this in detail in your Extraterrestrial Presence on Earth book, don't you? And in fact, in that book, you go into detail about all of the destructions that have occurred on Earth. So if you'd like to read more about such things, all Judy's books are available from Amazon and can be accessed through links on her website listed below. And they are
Human by Day, Zeta by Night, followed by the Zeta Message, then Extraterrestrial Presence on Earth, Lessons in History, and my two most recent books, both Kindle editions and both also available in German, An Interview with an Alien, Comments by an Undercover ET, and Cosmic Spirituality, Blending Religion and Science in Oneness from an Off-Planet Perspective.
Thank you, Judy, and thank you everyone for listening. We'll continue with more of the Hopi Prophecy in our next episode. So please share, like and subscribe, and we're sending you all much love, and bye for now.